Well, welcome to the second week of our message series that we're calling Let's Go. One of the greatest quarterbacks ever, Tom Brady, used to take the field before every game screaming that phrase, "Let's go." Like all good quarterbacks, he wanted to inspire and encourage himself and his teammates to get into the game, to get excited about the game, and to play their best. And we're using that phrase, "Let's go," as the title of our message series because we want to get you pumped up about accomplishing great things for God together as a team. Most of you, I think, probably long for a sense of significance in life, right? You want your time on earth to matter. You want your life to make a difference. You long for and desire to leave a legacy so that others will remember you as a kind, good, loving, and generous person. But for most of us, the only way that we can really leave a lasting, positive impact on this planet is by being part of a team. You just can't do it alone. The man, Jesus of Nazareth, arguably was the human being who made the greatest impact of any human being in the history of the world because he spent his life going around doing good for others. And that impact continues even today, 2,000 years later, because Jesus didn't try to do it alone. He assembled a team of people to help him. And he taught his team members the importance of humble service, and he modeled it for them every single day. The Jesus movement grew at an incredibly fast pace because his disciples saw themselves as members of a team, and they followed Jesus' example of humble service. And Jesus promises that his church will continue to grow as more and more of its members become humble servants. When friends and followers of Jesus, like you, step up into service, start deciding to start giving of their time and energy to serve in a volunteer ministry, it always creates an incredible spiritual momentum that is irresistible and that draws others into the life of the church. But let's be honest. For centuries, the Catholic Church has basically told you to simply pray, pay, and obey, while the priests would do all the work in the parish. Well, those days are over, because the truth is, the vast majority of what the priest traditionally does can be done and done better by you. Whenever the people in the pews, the baptized, are given the permission, the encouragement, and the invitation to step up and serve, the result is always a healthy and growing church. Great music, inspiring, relevant homilies, beautiful worship spaces, those are all great things for a church. But the number one thing that predicts how much a church, a local parish, will be able to grow, and growth is important, how much it will be able to grow depends on one thing: the percentage of you who decide to start serving and act like humble servants following the example of Christ. And our health and growth at St. Hilary here also is integrally connected to how many of you decide to accept that invitation and serve if you're not already serving. That's what we talked about last week in this first week of our episode, the first episode of our message series. But you should also know that there are many good reasons for you to serve in a parish. There's also many good reasons for you to serve that will benefit you personally. And there's actually 3 of them that I'm going to talk about. First of all, it's no secret that people are happiest and most fulfilled when they give of themselves, when they step up and serve, when they produce, contribute, and serve. And that's one good reason to serve, is that it will give you a sense of significance. It will give you a sense of purpose and meaning in your life. A friend of mine is a great example of that. He's a young man. He's like 41, and to me, that's a young man, unfortunately. And he's a family man. He's got a wife, and he's got 3 young children, and he does a lot of good things, and he's a great father, and he's a great husband. But he's been a friend of mine for several years, and we'd go out to dinner periodically, and he would tell me at every dinner, we would talk about one thing that kept bothering him. He said, "Father, I have this deep-seated sense of angst, kind of anxiety, like there's a hole that he can't fill, like something's not right, like he's not doing enough." And he's done a lot of great things. He just felt like everything was so temporal. And he knew that God was like expecting him to do more, but he didn't know what to do. We talked about him maybe becoming a deacon. We talked about him maybe quitting his job and working for the church. We talked about him, he even had this idea of helping foster children. But none of it seemed to pan out. None of it seemed to work. Until about 6 months ago, when I had dinner with him, he came to dinner and he said, "Father, all that angst that I had, it's calmed down." I said, "Great. What happened?" Well, he said, "My wife and I have decided to join a group of parents that are starting a high school, a Catholic high school in San Francisco." I blurted out, "Are you nuts?" Because as the pastor of a parish with a school, I do know how much life and energy and joy having a school brings to the campus, but I also know how many problems there can be, how complicated it can be, how there can sometimes be headaches and heartaches. He said, "I know, Father, I know it's going to be hard. I know. But this angst has gone away. And that must mean it's right. Right? Right." And so for the first time in a long time, in fall of 2024, there's going to be a new school, a new Catholic high school in San Francisco. The name of it is Nativity, and its mascot is the camel. Not so sure about that one, but he makes a good case for it on the website. Anyway, look, I'm not asking you to go out and start a school or something. That's not the point of the story. Really, it's the simple moments of serving that actually, in the end, change the world the most because they add up. What I am saying is that when you find a ministry, when you find something that you can dedicate yourself to selflessly, you will be more fulfilled and find meaning in your life that you haven't maybe felt before or in a long time. You mothers who are here today, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know exactly what humble service means, because as a mother, you never stop serving. Your children, you always worry about them. You always care about them. And one day when you pass from this life to the next, you will be still worried about them, praying for them, talking to God to protect them. You are models of humble service. But there are also things you can do outside the family that will give you also a sense of purpose, meaning, passion, drive, energy. So that's the first good reason to serve, fulfillment and meaning. A second good reason is that it will connect you more with people, the people around you, the people sitting here in the pews. I would ask you to ask yourself this question as you go home today. How many people in this parish can I call a close friend? If you want to make more, or you somehow don't like your answer, the best way is to dive into ministry. You will forge relationships with the people that you serve with that will last a lifetime and that will carry you through some difficult times in your life. I learned that myself. Last Easter, 6 weeks ago, I shared with you a very difficult time in my life. It was a time when I had experienced a failed marriage. And I felt very much alone after the divorce, especially on those days and weekends when I didn't have my daughter. I felt very alone and broken. And the one bright spot was my church. It was a huge, bustling Catholic church in suburban Atlanta, Georgia. It was enormous, but despite its size, I loved it, and I felt at home there, and I would go to Mass every Sunday, and I couldn't wait to go to Mass. But up until that point, I had never gotten more deeply involved in the life of the parish. I had never joined a ministry, and I thought, with my new circumstance, this might be the perfect time. So I summoned the courage, and I started talking to church leaders. And before you know it, I was teaching confirmation classes, I was helping out on retreats, I was basically rolling up my sleeves and doing whatever needed to be done. And I have to tell you from my heart, it was incredibly healing to me. Looking back on those 5 years when I was at that parish, they were some of the best in my life. And when I was accepted into seminary here in San Francisco, I realized that my journey was complete. My journey from loneliness to a sense of connectedness, my journey from a brokenness to healing and redemption, it was complete. Because the pastor asked me to say a few parting words to the various congregations after the masses on Sunday. And as I stood up there, afraid to speak, I wasn't a good speaker, I hadn't had any practice in speaking, I could feel the warmth and the love and the acceptance and the blessings of the people out there. People that I had experienced redemption among, and people that I had come to love dearly because of ministry, because I got more involved. That's the power of ministry. The voice of culture will tell you that if you want to be fulfilled, focus on yourself. Jesus said, if you want to find your life, you need to give it away. And when you give it away in service, when you give a part of your time away, even if it's just a small amount of time every week, when you give it away like that, you will experience fulfillment because of the many relationships that you will form. Relationships with people that will help you through the dark times. People who will stand with you when you're hurting. But there's also a third benefit to service that I want to talk with you about. And this one arguably is the most important. When you serve, it takes your relationship with Jesus to a deeper level. When you discover a personal ministry, you will see yourself grow closer to Christ in ways that you never expected. When we start serving others, something changes in us. We experience the person of Jesus Christ in a new and different way as we become part of what he is doing in the world. We begin to realize that we're actually on a mission with Jesus, and that draws us closer to his heart. Before you start serving, you might feel a little bit like an outsider as to what God is doing in the world or in the church. But once you start serving on a regular basis, you'll feel much more like you're part of God's team. And just as you get to know people better when you serve with them, you also get to know Jesus better when you serve in his ministry. All of this was promised by Christ himself in the gospel passage that we heard today at Mass. Jesus is at the Last Supper. He's talking to his apostles. He's saying goodbye to them. It's the night before his crucifixion. Everybody knows it's a difficult moment. Everybody knows that they're not going to see him again. And at some point in the evening, Jesus turns to them and he says, "Don't worry. I will ask the Father, and he will give you another advocate to be with you always." He was referring to the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of Christ, who will remain with the disciples even after his physical body is no longer present. The Holy Spirit is an advocate, a guide, a consoler, a comforter. The Holy Spirit drives us into service, consecrates us into service, and teaches us how to serve according to the Spirit of Christ. And then Jesus promises his apostles that he will never, ever abandon them. He says, "I will not leave you orphans. I will come to you. And on that day you will realize that I am in my Father, and you are in me, and I am in you. We will all be one." Jesus assures them that they will always be in relationship with him and will know him and be loved by him so long as they keep his commandments. Oh, there's a condition. He says, "Whoever has my commandments and observes them is the one who loves me, and I will love him and reveal myself to him." Sounds like conditional love, doesn't it? It's really not, because Jesus doesn't really have a list of commandments. He doesn't expect perfection. He simply has one commandment. This is my commandment, he says. Love one another as I love you. And to love is to serve. You can't love someone unless you want the best for them and are willing to help them get there. And so it is through serving that we come to recognize Christ and grow into a deeper friendship with him. Serving opens up so many possibilities for us to see Jesus in new and fresh ways. And I think this is why so many people say that they get more out of serving than perhaps the people that they serve. Next week, we're going to give you an opportunity to join one of our ministry teams here at St. Hilary. After this Mass, we'll have a ministry mixer next door where you'll have the opportunity to learn about all the different opportunities to serve in our parish while you're enjoying some delicious food and fantastic drinks. No high-pressure sales job, just information gathering that you can go and pray about it and think about it. If you're not already serving in this parish, I would just invite you to continue to pray between now and next Sunday about what you can do, whether God is asking you to do something right now in your life. Check out our website, sthilary.org. It has all the opportunities to serve. If you are serving currently in this parish, I want to take this moment to thank you from my heart. We couldn't do it without you. But I have another ask. I have an ask of you. This week, please talk to 2 or 3 of your friends or acquaintances, people that you know, that you think might be good at serving in one of our ministries here. For most of the ministries, you don't even have to be Catholic. Talk to people, if you're a parent or a grandparent and you're on the soccer fields with your kid, talk to people on the soccer fields. If you're in a small group, talk to your small group members. If you're having dinner at the yacht club, talk to your table party there at the yacht club. Start a conversation, because your personal invitation to someone else will mean so much more than my general plea from the pulpit. Just start the conversation and tell the person why you serve and what you do to serve and why it brings you fulfillment, and let it go from there. You'll be surprised what happens. When you step up and serve, you will grow. You will grow in many ways. You will grow in your fulfillment and sense of purpose. You will grow in your relationship with others in this parish. And you will grow, most importantly, you will grow in your relationship with Jesus Christ.